What's up, everybody? Welcome into Lacrosse Now. That is Travis Eldridge. I am Tom Eschen. Appreciate you joining us after another great weekend of games for the men and women. NLL had some wild games, as always, as well. Westburg, maybe the goal of the year. That's for another day. But we're going to react to those games all day long here on Lacrosse Now. We've got an interview with Andrew Song, the Princeton LSM. Big game as Princeton knocked off Georgetown. And also the Denver women. They are rolling right now. Big game against Boston College. Bea Behrins joins the show.
Yeah, of course, we'll also break down the women's game with our favorite person in the sport, Tracy Weiner. She's joining us. And Tom, I do have to say, I was traveling this weekend. I was in the airport in Charlotte, stuck, flight delays last night. But there was one saving grace. It was the fact that Jacksonville and Utah were playing on CBS Sports Network in the evening. So I had a chance to catch that and kill some time by watching Utah pull off a nice upset. So I am thankful for college lacrosse, especially last night.
Oh, yeah, it was great just to see those two teams on that kind of a platform, and that's what it's all about. You know, it wasn't like a huge conference game or whatever in the ACC. It was Jacksonville, Utah, two good programs, but getting that kind of exposure. I think that's a good point, Travis. Maybe more on them here as the day goes on. We're going to start off talking and breaking down the men's weekend, and we're going to give out some grades. So we're going to give some A's, B's, and what have you here. And Travis, you start first. Your first team and your first grade after this weekend.
Yeah, so I'm going broad because while there were a lot of teams that had good weekends, to me, the entire league that had maybe the best weekend of anybody was the Ivy League. And I give the Ivy League a resounding A for what they did. Every single team in the league won a game this weekend, including some of the games that we're going to hit on here throughout, because you've got Princeton, who knocks off Georgetown. You have Brown scoring 22 on Providence. Cornell, maybe the biggest win of the weekend, knocking off Ohio State. Penn holds on against Penn State. Yale hangs on against UMass. It would have been an A+ if Penn and Yale did a little bit more damage against teams that they probably should have beaten a little easier, but they still hang on and get the win. I mean, you have Dartmouth even winning games. Harvard takes care of business. Every single team in the league won this week, which to me shows everybody, hey, you know what? We had a college lacrosse season last year, but it wasn't the same without this league, because they're showing us that just like it was in 2020, is one of the best in the entire country.
Yeah, it was fun to watch, and I think you go right to Cornell, and not many people were picking them. Someone did in this building right here, but that's besides the point. Gavin Adler played great D. We talked about, and we've been touting Jack Myers all season long. Gavin Adler was really good for Cornell defensively. It just was one of those games where Cornell's like, hey, we're still here. And that, to me, sort of echoed what we saw over the rest of the Ivy League as well. Like you said, Penn hasn't scored a lot. Sam Hanley hasn't had a huge offensive year, but they've done just enough, sort of the Penn way. They're scratching and clawing, and now they're getting wins against a Penn State team that was riding high after a big win themselves over an Ivy League team in Yale the week before.
Yeah, and to me, I said it when we were talking about Princeton losing to Maryland, and I think I said it was last week, that we might look back at that game and say maybe that was the best win Maryland has had to date. And after what they did at Georgetown, it may be true. I mean, Princeton, with the amount of talent they had, you forget, because Michael Sowers got all the recognition, and deservedly so, back in 2020. But around Michael Sowers, they had a ton of talent, and now we're seeing it even without him. They can still compete with the best.
And like we said before, the defense for Princeton's what stuck out to me. George Boggin didn't play against Georgetown, and he is one of their best defensive players. So you've got that, and that tells you how much depth. I think that was one of the questions with the Ivy League teams, right? It was the amount of depth these programs had after some transferring happened. Some seniors had worked their way through. Fifth years, some took obviously the academic year off, but depth was a question mark, and so far it's coming through. The Ivy Leagues haven't missed too much of a beat. Yale, the only, I think, maybe question mark at this point of teams that we had high expectations for, having to scrape a win over UMass, which that's always a good battle. We had talked about that on Thursday too.
Right, you can't hurt them too much for that. They still got the win. The Penn State loss is still the head scratcher for Yale, and maybe for the whole conference. But otherwise, they are they're right there with the Big Ten and the ACC right now, in my estimation, of in that mix for best conference in the country.
Yeah, I feel like Yale's going to get there. Andy Shea just seems like he's scratching his head right now. He's like, what's going? Like, we can't clear the ball for some reason. Like, he's like, we made some weird mistakes that he probably hasn't seen yet, just getting back there, getting the rust off. All right. My first grade is going to go to Boston University. They get an A because they go to Colgate and they rip them. And then you go on the road to Hamilton. We were like, yeah, BU's played really well this year. They've looked good. Now you got to do it in conference play. They won 18-6 at Colgate. They held them scoreless for the final 19 minutes and 5 seconds. They're 4-0 for the first time since 2017. And yes, I mean, style points are what they are, but this one had some style points. And this really showed you what BU could be all about. Vince Delotto, 3 goals, 4 assists. He's 9th in the NCAA in points per game this year. Their goalie, Matt Garber, 15 saves, 2nd in the NCAA in goals against average. I think BU is for real, Travis. And you know, their competition is what it is, but if you're blowing people out, that says something to me.
Yeah, and I think the Patriot League is wide open now. So you walked into the year, and if you're BU, it looks like you're looking up to the likes of Army and Loyola and Lehigh. All 3 of them are nationally ranked to enter the season. And now they have some struggles. BU has to look at this like, hey, you know what? We had belief in ourselves before, but this thing is wide open. I mean, outside of Army, we had a nice win over Syracuse this week, but even against Holy Cross, didn't blow them away the way we've seen some other teams around them in the national rankings blow away that Crusaders squad. So I'm telling you, BU has to be in the mix, along with the Armies and the Lehighs and maybe the Loyolas, maybe the Navies. This conference it looks like there's 5 or 6 teams that could possibly win.
You're leaving one out, Travis, the only other unbeaten in the Patriot League, and that is Bucknell. I mean, BU Bucknell this weekend, that's the big game, and we'll see what each team is made of. I feel like that's going to be a really nice indication of what they got.
Yeah, to me, that league is just, there are a couple leagues across the country that are just, there's no way to predict who's going to win, and that's one of them.
All right, what's your next grade?
I'm going to go to the ACC. I'm going to go to North Carolina. They beat Denver 17-16 this weekend. And I'm going to give it a B+ because I think that it was good. They took care of business, but they haven't left home at all this year, and they're still struggling. So for me, this starts to be the time of the year. Once you get to March, we're starting to learn who you are. Now, there's still room for growth, but you should start to take some steps in the direction where, hey, you believe this team can compete for championship weekend in May, or the teams that maybe still have a long way to go to get there. And I think this North Carolina team still feels like they've got a ways to go to get to the team we saw last year. We've mentioned it all year around Chris Gray. Who else is going to step up? I do like Lance Tillman with the 5 points he had against Denver. That's a positive sign. Chris Gray's still, we mentioned he's like the Ja Morant of college lacrosse right now. Dude just gets his 6 goals, 2 assists for 8 points. This week, they get Virginia on Thursday. I am fascinated to see what this North Carolina team does against Virginia this weekend. But once again, they don't leave the state of North Carolina until April 9th. The only road game they have until almost mid-April is at High Point. This schedule is wild. Like how they've played all these teams, they haven't left Dorrance Field.
Yeah, and what really their defense really concerns me. And we talk about, of course, losing their midfield in the offseason, the offensive things. They got Chris Gray, so they have to win faceoffs. And that's when they've been successful. That's when Tyar's been in there winning faceoff. It's almost make it take it for them. But if they don't win faceoffs and they have to play some defense, that's when teams can get on them. You saw Denver do that. And you said Virginia. It just reminded me of Virginia on Thursday. And we saw what Virginia did to Hopkins. This is going to be an awakening for North Carolina on Thursday. It's a Thursday night in the ACC. You never know what's going to happen, but I kind of know what's going to happen right now. This could be a pretty sizable Virginia victory in my mind. All right, I'm going to continue on with my grade here, Trav. I'm going to go with Rutgers, and I'm giving Rutgers a B. And I know Stony Brook started the season really well. They were, 3-1, something like that, 4-0 going into that game. And, Rutgers never, blew them out and blew them away. And actually, Stony Brook almost came back and won that game. And I'm going to go right to the face-off X for this one. It was a 17-16 Rutgers win because the Seawolves scored 4 straight to make it 17-16 with 4:58 left. Renz Conlon won 3 straight faceoffs during that run, only because he had a violation on the 4th of that run in which they didn't win the faceoff. They didn't score the rest of the game, whatever. I'd imagine if they had won that faceoff, they might score, tie it. We're talking about a completely different thing here. But my point is, just talked about style points a moment ago. Rutgers now moves up to 3rd in the nation. You're a top 5 team. You got to look like a top 5 team in my estimation. They look like maybe a top 10 team right now, and that's why they get a B. If you're going to have that ranking and you're going to play the schedule that you're playing right now, no diss on Stony Brook there. I think they're a good club. They've gotten some good wins, but you're a top 5 team in Rutgers. You have to look better than that, especially when it comes to faceoffs and those facets of the game you can't get dominated at, and that's what they did.
Well, yeah, that's quite frankly why when I did my poll here last night, I had Princeton up above Rutgers because what Princeton has done this year is more impressive than Rutgers squeaking by against Stony Brook. Look, you've got to win the games that are in front of you. You have to look at, all right, what did you look like, not only in the scoreboard, but like what did you look like on the field? And I haven't been completely sold yet into Rutgers being a team that is a championship weekend team yet from what we've seen. It could completely change when they go play this Big Ten schedule and they compete against the teams that they've got left because the schedule's not easy. But at this point, I don't quite see it yet.
Well, you get those 2 teams matched up this weekend. Rutgers goes to Princeton on Saturday. So you'll learn something.
We get our answer.
There. We get our answer, as we always do. All right, your last grade here, Trav.
You mentioned Virginia. They went up 6-0. And they led 10-1 at halftime against Johns Hopkins. Now, I know Hopkins hasn't been a top 10 team all year, but it's still Johns Hopkins, and they embarrassed them. I mean, that's a rivalry game that Hopkins is going to get up for. Like, that's not an easy game to just blow somebody out. And Virginia blew the doors off of the Blue Jays. So for me, Virginia gets a A+, by far my best grade of the weekend. Not only were they up 6-0, the first 6 goals were scored by 6 different players.
Yeah.
I mean, the depth and their ability to get it from all over the place. And then they dominate at the faceoff X. Peyton Cormier scores 6 goals. Connor Schellenberger has to be a towards-on favorite at this point in the year because he doesn't even make a lot of noise and he's got 8 points. I mean, this Virginia team, they still keep getting my number 1 vote, and they've gotten it every week because while they had a couple of maybe hiccups early on where they got a little too comfortable with some leads and they let teams hang around when they want to, it just feels like they can beat anybody in the country.
Yeah, I mean, they should be number 1. I think I understand why Maryland's gotten the benefit of the doubt there with the performances they put on. They beat Loyola at the beginning of the year, and that was obviously a dominating performance at that. But at the same time, Loyola looks a little different now. The way that Virginia's now continued to get better already has been amazing. And you consider that the fact that they started the season number 1 and they haven't lost, right? I mean, they're not number 1 because of these style. Like, I understand, talked about style points quite a bit, but you're talking about 1 and 2 here, 2 of the best teams in the nation. It's hard to compare those two. And Virginia's got more than Maryland at this point. That's besides the point. You're right. A+ for Virginia. They're going to get to continue to make their statement. And a chip on the shoulder of a defending champion is not something I thought would have, but it feels like Virginia's playing with a little bit of that now.
Yeah, and you know what the great thing is? The thing that they did against Hopkins is impressive is because they have that big game against Maryland in a couple of weeks, and you got North Carolina on Thursday. And I know it's a rivalry game, but when you have those kinds of games coming up and you are as accomplished and the 2-time defending champs as Virginia is, it's easy to overlook a game that may be against somebody who's further down in the rankings, doesn't have the top 5 next to their name. And they have not done that. They have just taken care of business. They did it against Towson even after a slow start. They to me are my number 1 team in the country.
All right. I will now provide the last grade here, and we go to the
what
game.
You'll
go to the game that you watched, Travis, at the airport there, and it is Jacksonville. And I'm sorry, they deserve a B- here. And I was leaning towards C, but this is a little bit too about Utah because Utah's been like that loss for Jacksonville wasn't ideal. You're at home, you're on national TV, CBS Sports Network, and your own window, a standalone game, as John Rothstein would call it in college basketball. and you kind of lay a bit of an egg because that game, I mean, you weren't really ever that close. They led 4-0, and then Utah controlled pretty much the rest of the game after that. But Utah is better than everybody thinks. But you hear Utah, you think, oh, they're the newest program on the block, one of them now, and they think, oh, you should always beat them. They lost by 1 to Denver opening weekend, 1-goal win over Vermont. They beat Marquette as well. So it's not like they're this doormat new team out of nowhere. They're a program that's been getting better and better, and we even saw that in their first season. And I think that maybe everyone's underestimating Utah a little bit. And for them at that point to get that win on national TV, a program, a Pac-12 one at that people can recognize, on television, say, wow, like Utah lacrosse, they're pretty good. That meant a lot to that program. So that's why I don't want to make sure Jacksonville, gets too bad of a grade here, but they need it after what they did, of course, against Duke, and they were the darlings of the early season in lacrosse and falling back down to earth, and now looks like they're going to have to win the SoCon. Meanwhile, Utah, on the other hand, looks like they're going to go out and win the Atlantic Sun. I mean, Ruben Santana was great for them. He's a tough, big midfielder, and they got some athletes there at Utah, just like we had thought we would see over the years. They got some dudes that are going to play and continue to compete. They got UMBC coming up on Friday.
This is why the AQ for a team like Utah is so important, because this game becomes not like just like, oh, hey, that's great, pat on the back, a team that was ranked highest team that you've ever beaten in your program's history. But now it can actually mean something, because you go out and use that momentum to win your conference. And no longer is it a team that was just spoken about in the beginning of March because they had a cool win. They're a team that we may also talk about in May because they're playing a first-round game against the likes of Maryland or Virginia or whoever. And that is important for a program as well. It's not just a blip on the radar. They can be a national story throughout because they're in contention. Like if Utah is an independent, this win against Jacksonville is great, but as soon as you lose to Denver, your chances of going to the NCAA tournament as an at-large are gone. But now, like there's still a path for them to make it.
The path for Jacksonville, Travis, what is it? Is it everything erased? Do they have to go out and win the SoCon after wins against Marquette, Denver, and Duke?
I mean, they probably were going to have. Yeah, there was probably a chance that they were going to have to already because of the Hopkins loss at the beginning of the year. We've seen High Point do this. Like they had a couple of early wins, then you trip up once in SoCon regular season play, and then it's like, all right, well, I've got to win. I do think that this can be a great learning experience for, even though they're a senior-laden team, this is a whole new experience for this Jacksonville program. And you get all the notoriety and everybody's talking about you. You get hyped up for a national TV game, and they didn't quite come through.
Yeah, and I think John Galloway would agree with you on that. He probably was a little disappointed in that performance, but like you said, they'll be ready, and they're battle-tested now for the conference tournament for sure, and they know we can beat teams. So they go and win the conference tournament. You look at the NCAA first round, that is maybe where Jacksonville becomes the most dangerous, I'd imagine. A nod from Travis means, Travis is nodding for those of you listening, so he agrees with me, which he should have more in our last show on Thursday. If you want to go back and revisit Tom's top things, I highly recommend it. Just if you're, not anything to do, but just go revisit that and then look at the results from this past weekend. Nonetheless, a lot of great games in the women's side of things over the weekend as well, and Travis and I spoke to Tracy Weiner about just that. All right, none other than Tracy Weiner joins us now to break down everything that happened in the women's game over the weekend and get her take on a lot of different things. Tracy, great to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. Always my happy time of the year.
I mean, Sunday, we had a lot of great games all happening at once. That we were so excited about the slate, and I think, some of them were surprising. Some of them lived up to the hype. I guess let's start pretty broad here. What stuck out to you from this weekend?
Well, I think what always sticks out for me in the beginning of the season is, as much as things change, they always remain the same, don't they? And for us, the new norm is BC, UNC, Syracuse. Although I am becoming on the Terps bandwagon again. Northwestern look great. Stony Brook is on the brink. Duke put up a great game. It's just that whole group, and I just think that moving forward, as they start getting into their conference games, the Big Ten, the ACC, I think you're going to see teams really separate.
Well, that's what I want to hit on, Tracy. Last week, Tom and I did our tiers. And so we look at the top, and obviously it's UNC and Boston College. But then the question is, was Syracuse in that tier? Northwestern, Maryland? Is it UNC and BC at the top and then everybody else? Like, is that how this is shaking out with what we've seen so far?
This week, I'm going to have to say yes. Okay. I do need to see Maryland a little bit more, to be honest with you. The addition of Aurora accordingly, oh my goodness. She has taken off all of the pressure of everybody else that they were going to be having with Libby May, Grace Griffin, Hannah Lubiker, Shannon Smith. That group now has free reign to just go crazy because you have to watch Aurora. That being said, when we look at UNC and BC, okay, I still give the edge to Boston College at this time. Charlotte North, you have Bell Smith, the Weeks twins, Medjid, Hasselbeck, Mossman, Martello, and then their defense is just out of control. Hunter Roman, Schleicher, Taylor, you look at the only team that can compete with them is UNC with Ortega, Mastriani, Wurzberger, Growney, Aldave, Gersbach, Wareheim, that whole crew. And you have Trenchard, Hall, Dirks. I think it's a great matchup. Where I think that UNC could overtake them in the big game, Taylor Moreno for me is the X factor. Hall's a good goalie. She's playing well. She has a tremendous defense in front of her. But Taylor Moreno, when she's on, is a complete game changer.
Yeah, I think I agree with that completely, Tracy. And that's why I would personally go with that just a bit towards North Carolina. Like, North Carolina was the better team in the regular season last year, right? I mean, and Boston College got hot and Rachel Hall got hot all the right time. I guess, like you said, right now you're picking BC, but it's kind of like, it's hard to pick between the two. You're splitting hairs, but I do like Moreno personally better.
Yeah, I do like Moreno a lot. For me in the big game, though, losing Katie Hogue to graduation is a tremendous loss that can't go unnoticed once we get to playoffs. Katie always flew under the Jamie Ortega radar, but Katie Hogue was a big, big reason why UNC was unbelievably, ranked and talented and undefeated all those years.
Interesting. I did the Maryland game against William & Mary this past weekend. Sorry to interrupt you, Travis, but just want to touch on Maryland real quick. And what stuck out, obviously, Cordingley was a fantastic, but also on their back end, the defense. I mean, they've got a couple of veterans there, and you bring in Abby Bosco, who we talked about at the beginning of the year, was a little bit with Cordingley going over from Hopkins. Obviously, that was the big news, but Abby Bosco from Penn and filling that void a little bit more of Lizzie Colson, who picking up those ground balls and the draws and everything like that. She really has made a huge difference for them. They've really filled any hole that they might have needed in this offseason with the transfer portal, too.
Well, they did. And Kathy Reese did a great job of pillaging the transfer portal, and Maryland really, the kids always go there anyway. She's blessed to get those type of recruits. She's a tremendous coach. Her staff hasn't changed in all the years that I've known them. Everybody knows what they're getting when they get to Maryland. Kenneth does an amazing job. Always that man-to-man defense, help slides. The girls know the system. And if you can play in Kenneth's system, it's a slam dunk. And for Maryland, when they can score those extra goals now on offense, it takes all the pressure off of the defensive end. And now they can take those more aggressive chances and not really have to have heels on the 8. And that's what makes Maryland so hard to beat.
So you mentioned Maryland, and I think everybody is kind of in the same boat you are. I know I am. It's like, okay, we've seen Maryland. It seems like they're back, but you want to wait and see when they get that big first test. And we'll see that, I think, soon enough. Who else? Like, we've seen Syracuse, the goalie situation's been shaky here at the beginning part of the season.
Yes.
Northwestern got a nice win over Syracuse earlier this week. Who else do you feel like could be in that conversation with BC and North Carolina by the end of the year?
Okay, so what I'm going to say to you is, Northwestern, Izzy Skane doesn't get hurt. They are in that conversation 150%. What a shame for Izzy to get hurt at this particular time with this particular team. Stony Brook for me is hanging tough. For the beginning, this is the first time in the beginning when Joe plays that really out of conference tough schedule that he has been right there, if not winning, on the doorstep. So as Stony Brook matures and Massera matures, it'd be interesting to see what they look like at the end of the year. The team for me, though, in the top 10 to look out for is Michigan. Just keep an eye on them. Just keep an eye. They are big. They are strong. They are fast. They are athletic, and they have an amazing coaching staff. So we'll just keep an eye on Michigan in that top 10 group. I'd like to see how they do as the season progresses.
Yeah, Loyola, they've got some of those veterans back too. They intrigue me a bit, right? Like, what do you think they've got? They're very interesting to me.
They are very interesting. And again, you want to talk about a coaching staff that's, above Dana Dobie, Jen Adams, that whole crew. They know what they're doing there at Loyola. For me, what I need to see Loyola do is have a signature win. That will always do it for me. To me, they're always in their conference. They're right where they need to be. They're almost like how Stony Brook is. They're right outside of that Elite Eight, Final Four conversation. And for me, I need to see them beat, a Cuse, beat a Maryland, beat a UNC, one of those teams. And then I'll be a true believer that they can go all the way this year.
I want to go back to North Carolina here for a second, because for the last year or so, I've felt like you watch them play these elite teams, and the thing that stands out is not only their ability to score, but like if another team trades goals with them for a little bit, it's just like their defense is so good that the other team runs out of gas and being able to trade goals. Is that correct? Like, is that what really
correct.
Makes them stand out?
Well, most of the time what happens, Travis, on a UNC game is you fall 3 or 4 goals behind immediately, because they are, you might want to have your best defender. It's all about the matchup. So your best defender gets Ortega. Your second best defender maybe gets Alde. Maybe your third best defender has to watch Wurzburger. Okay, so who's watching Growney? Who's watching Mastriani? Who's watching Wareheim? And there's where they expose those matchups. So what happens is you fall 3 or 4 goals behind, and you use all your energy to scratch and claw your way back just to get into a tie. And then they're off to the races again, and it just takes all the air out of you.
Yeah, and Olivia, we talked about the transfer portal with Maryland. Olivia Dirks for North Carolina too. I mean, she was what a get, right? I mean, she's sky's the limit, right?
Killing it. I mean, Trenchard's so happy, to have like another partner in crime back there. I mean, they're really, they're just well balanced. They're as well balanced as Boston College. When you look at these teams, you can't say like, we do look at Maryland and we wonder the goalie situation. They always go, but they seem to have stabilized that, the defense a little bit. You look at Syracuse and their goalie situation. When you look at UNC and Boston College, where's the weak link? Can't find it.
Looking outside the top 10, it was an intriguing matchup between Notre Dame and Virginia this weekend. And Notre Dame goes and gets that win. Two teams that have played, Virginia's played a lot of tough games this year. They played a really tough schedule. And they've been close in like every one. And Notre Dame, we knew going into the year, we thought they could be pretty good. They could be one of those teams. Or either one of those you think can put themselves in that conversation?
Possibly, yes. But for me, I went a little outside the box on this. And I wanted to look at some teams that we never talk about.
Okay.
So the first one I want to bring up is my friend Janine Tucker, who's retiring at the end of this year, and Hopkins. Had they had Cordingley, holy cow, they're a different team. They're already 4-1. I need to see their game on the 13th against Stony Brook. If they can find a way to beat Stony Brook, now we can talk about Hopkins at the next level. Colorado, 5-0. They've beaten Louisville, Harvard, Ohio State, Vandy, UC Davis. And then the other team that intrigues me is Denver. They have a big game on the 9th against Boston College. They are 6-0 at this point. If they, again, can have that big win, then Denver is going to be a top 10 team. And then Rutgers, the pride of New Jersey, right, guys? The 19th, they play the Terps. And again, Rutgers is undefeated at this time as well. So for those teams, and again, we don't give them a lot of love. We're always talking about the ACCs, the Big Tens. I get it. But if Rutgers can find a way to beat the Terps, we'll be talking about them.
One more for you about some of the teams out west, Tracy. Stanford was a team that got so much recognition going into the year. Is it just that they've got so many young pieces that they haven't quite clicked yet? Because that recruiting class was obviously really well regarded coming in, and it just feels like it hasn't clicked yet.
Yeah, I mean, well, Bianca's still a senior, 5th-year senior there, correct? Ali Bianca, one of my favorite players in the country. Love Ali because she's a Jersey kid. Again, it's just a matter of them. I find with the out west teams, because they can't travel as much, and with COVID, they really got hurt playing competitive schedules. So all we need to see from Stanford is whether or not they can get playoff tough to the ACC and the Big Ten teams. And that's my only knock really on Stanford, is that they were unable to travel and get those real heavy hitter games in over the last 2 years.
Denver is what I wanted to ask. Do they have to beat BC, or can they just play them close at Philo, and we can be like,
they can. I mean, they've beaten
legit.
Ohio State, Vandy, Louisville, Stanford, Cal, and UC Davis. Again, just being competitive, like I said about Stony Brook. They don't always have to win, but it can't be a blowout.
Yeah, I think, yeah, right, because we've seen these teams. North Carolina, I mean, blew out Northwestern yesterday. So, I mean, if you can keep pace, you're doing something right, I guess, whoever
Agreed.
you are.
especially in March, guys.
Yeah, true. Good point. We got a couple months to go, but still, appreciate you coming on, Tracy, and thank you as always for the time. We'll talk again before the end of the season, I'm sure, at some point, because we got plenty to talk about, and the matchups just get better. BC and North Carolina, by the way, March 20th. That's when they match up. We'll see if BC can get over Denver. Looks like both will be undefeated at that point.
The whole state of New York, Long Island lacrosse will all be watching that game, guaranteed.
I think the whole country will, right?
Probably.
Everybody will be watching that game. Tracy, thanks for the time.
Thanks, guys. Take care now.
Thanks, Tracy.
Bye-bye.
So the grad student from Denver, Bea Behrins, joins us now. Bea, thanks for coming out. We appreciate the time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, obviously you guys, such a great season last year, winning the Big East championship and a wonderful record as well. You were 16-2. You come out this year and you do it again. How have you been able to sustain playing so well now for a second straight season here?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I think having that year cut off because of COVID, I think really affected us, and coming back and being able to play with everyone and being back with everyone kind of was that spark for us last season. And I think this year having it being even more normal is great. And I think it's allowing us to have that, team chemistry that we might have lacked last season, but we're able to, be really close this year. And I think it's really, really showing on the field.
That's an amazing thing. We talked to all these people in the lacrosse world, and last year everybody was playing again, and there were seasons, but this year everyone's like, it is back to normal. I guess it's got to be but such a better feeling to be around each other both on and off the field again.
Yeah, definitely. It was weird, having, last year we were in cohorts and we were in our houses. That was pretty much all we could hang out with. So now being able to hang out with the whole team and being together in lift and conditioning, whatever it may be, I think it makes a huge difference this season.
So you're a grad student. So you stepped on campus, 2017, 2018? Was that the year?
Yep, 2017.
How much have things, I guess, changed since then about the program, about you? Obviously, it's been a long time.
Yeah, definitely. I think coming in, the program is definitely starting to grow. And I think seeing from freshman year to now, the progress that we've made over the past few years, it's amazing. And I think a lot of people see us as an underdog. And I think we've really embraced that role. And we're okay with maybe us being seen as an underdog. And I think we love that competition, and it kind of just lights a spark under us for anyone who we face throughout the season.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you got that home field advantage, right? And are you used to that? I mean, I'd imagine you are 5 years in, coming from New Jersey to a place like Denver. Your first, I guess a better question is your first impression of living out there in Denver compared to being in New Jersey where you grew up.
Yeah, it's amazing. And Denver has always been on the men's side a very popular lacrosse, hub. And I think being able to, over the past 5 years, kind of contribute to the women's side and really growing our side of that at the university it's been incredible. And Eliza has been a huge role model for all of us, just really motivating us and pushing us to be the best that we can be, and really, showing a name for University of Denver lacrosse.
Compared to where you grew up on the East Coast, there's probably plenty of differences. Is there a subtle difference between living out there in the Rockies compared to the East Coast of the United States?
Yeah, I think, you can even kind of see the sunshine shining in, and it's, I think, 30 degrees outside. And, even stepping outside, it's just a breath of fresh air, just coming outside, seeing the mountains and the city all in one. It's incredible.
Well, on the same token, what's similar about both places, if anything, that you've lived in your life?
Honestly, I don't know if there is many similarities between the two, if I'm honest. I would say, honestly, I don't even know if I can pick anything out.
How about lacrosse? Lacrosse is the same no matter where you are, right? You get out there, you definitely play.
Yeah, of course. And I think it's growing here so much. Even youth programs, you're seeing so many more girls joining them. And on the East Coast, I grew up with so many players who, grew up playing lacrosse, and here it's a little bit different. So we're trying to, gain awareness for the sport and really grow it out here on the West Coast.
One of your sisters, Elizabeth, she's on the team too. What's it like playing alongside your sister?
Yeah, she actually graduated 2 years ago,
Oh,
or 3
sorry.
years ago now. But
Oh,
no,
wow.
that's okay.
I didn't realize
No
that.
worries.
You did play together, I guess, in the
Yes.
past.
Yes, it was in the past, but it was amazing. I mean, I grew up playing with her, in middle school and high school, and being able to, use what we learned as kids and in lacrosse in college it was amazing. And I mean, I miss her a lot. I miss playing with her a lot, but she's moved on now, but she still comes and supports us every single game. So
You're one of 4 girls in your family, is that right?
I am. Yeah. I'm
Where
the
do you
youngest.
you're the youngest of the 4?
Yeah.
So you're the
Yeah.
baby. That had to be a unique experience growing up. A little toughness around that, right?
Definitely. All my sisters are very hard on me, but I mean, maybe it's helped me out now, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Well, it's kind of cool. Like, you grew up in your family as the youngest. You step on campus, obviously, as a freshman, and you contribute. And now you are one of the more experienced ones out there. What's that like for you to take on that leadership role?
Yeah, it's been definitely, I'm not the loudest of people, on the field. So it's been amazing that my teammates kind of elected me into this role. And I think I kind of used my sister's leadership for me, and I'm kind of translating that into helping out these younger girls that we have playing.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you got the big bad Boston College coming in here this week. What's the talk been like? The number 1 team in the nation coming to Denver.
Yeah, it's really exciting. We've never had the reigning national champ actually play on our home field before, so it's an honor to have them on the field. But they're a great team, a great program, but we're kind of really excited to show what we have and give them a run for their money a little bit.
Yeah, like you said, like you've had that sort of underdog mentality to begin with, and there's a lot of pride, I imagine, attached to that. And going out there and putting a good performance together too is probably on the docket. Just doing what you guys got to do well is probably the philosophy, I'd imagine.
Yeah, definitely. We're really excited coming off of Vanderbilt. It's always a close battle between them. So, using what we might have not done very well in that game and kind of making those changes for BC, I think is going to be really important. But yeah, we're really excited to have them on PDB next on Wednesday, I guess.
Yeah, we'll be watching. Don't worry. A lot of people will be.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bea. We appreciate the time, and good luck this week, okay?
Thank you.
So we've got Princeton's Andrew Song joining us now. Andrew, we just got to start off with the big win for you guys against Georgetown. What's the feeling coming off such a big win? You guys go on the road and kind of make a statement here in the first time in 2022.
Well, it was just a great team effort. I think that all the guys knew that we were capable of doing something like that. And it's just great to see everybody come out and really just play well. Really took everybody from top to bottom. I thought our teammates played great. Our goalie, of course, Alex Celestro, everybody in our whole locker room was pumped. So yeah, it was just a great win all in all.
How much did the game against Maryland, maybe, I know you lost it, but gave you maybe some confidence that you could compete? I think you gave Maryland the best game they've had all year long up to that point. What did that game do for this one moving forward?
Yeah, so the Maryland game was great for us, I thought, because we hadn't really played like a team like that in 2 years or so. So just getting out there, seeing what the competition's like from a championship level team. And just knowing that we can run with them, we can play with them. Like, obviously, wasn't the result we wanted, but just being out there, just having our guys with theirs and grinding out a whole game was awesome. So that definitely gave us a lot of confidence rolling into this past weekend.
You mentioned confidence, and I look back at 2020, and it felt like that game against Virginia, which was one of the final ones you guys played before everything shut down, where Michael Sowers goes off, you guys get that big win. It felt like that was you guys announcing to everybody, hey, Princeton lacrosse is here. You then shut down. Like, how hard is it to try to regain a little bit of the magic that was there? Because you do have a ton back from that team and a lot of probably still to prove from that team.
Yeah, exactly. That was honestly for everybody, one of the sadder moments for Princeton lacrosse. But just trying to build off of what we built that year, Michael Sowers and that whole class of 2020, they did an amazing job, an incredible job just building something special. And we just wanted to take everything that they did and just continue into this new year. Like it took 2 years to get here, but we have like 30 new guys or 20 new guys. We got 20 guys back from that 30 guys back from that special class of or 2020 season. So we just wanted to take the best parts of everything and just put it all together. And so I think Saturday was just a culmination that showed us that we can play to that level, and we'd like to play to that level for the rest of the year.
Mentally, what was the process like after first the season shut down and then the next season is completely canceled? What is mentally, how do you wade through, we get some of the thoughts you have to go through to get back to this point over the course of the last couple of years here?
Yeah, so I think just knowing that we're all in it together, and I know just watching all these other teams play throughout the year, like we all just like we're itching to get back on the field. Like we all just were I guess like chomping at the bit. So we were all just preparing, like waiting. I guess like maybe even like lying in dormant, just waiting until our moment came. And I think like just knowing that we just have 50 dogs in the locker room, we're ready to go at any time. Like I think that's how we kind of got through it.
Well, I was reading a little bit about what you were up to, and you had internships and different things that you were doing during the time away. But you spent some time in Park City. Are you a big skier?
I do love skiing. We actually got the 2 gap year classes out there because Bea Behrins and actually now McKnight Pedersen, like new freshmen, like they live out there. So they kind of convinced like us, like, oh, this is a great place to like get some fresh air. Like during COVID, like we can get the guys together, train, have some fun, like explore the outdoors. So we decided to do that. That kept our 2 grades like really tight over the gap year. Like we definitely lifted, played a lot of 3x, but yeah, like it was great. Like I think like COVID was definitely a tough time, but we kind of made the most out of it. Tried to have some semblance of like camaraderie, like by just going out there and spend some time together.
And you probably got, I guess, a semblance of like the workforce, work life, and all of that. You got a little glimpse of it, before actually taking on the real thing after this year.
Yeah, exactly. So like just for personal growth and I guess like my own like career stuff, like it was great. Like everybody got some good internship experience. Like honestly, like I think like a gap year made us all like mature a lot. So I thought that was great for just like all of us.
Andrew, you grew up here outside of Boston, where both Tom and I are now. But I know your parents are immigrants from China, and I wonder, being a first generation person coming up through and going to college here in the United States, how has that impacted your perspective on just whether it's playing college lacrosse, the opportunities you have going to a school like Princeton, and everything you've gone through in your life?
Yeah, I think what it's really shown for me is just like how lucky I am and how grateful I am for all the great opportunities I've had. Like just through my high school experience at Roxbury Latin, my college experience here, and then just like how much lacrosse has taken me to places I never thought I'd go ever. Like I've gone to go to Israel in 2018. I got to go to Coquitlam in 2016, and just meeting so many countless amazing people both here at Princeton, as well as just like throughout the world, really. So I think like that's something I'm really appreciative, like both to my parents, my friends, my coaches, my teachers, like everybody I've ever interacted with through lacrosse. So it's been awesome, and I have nothing but good things to say about all of that.
Yeah, what's it mean to you to sort of be that guy that a lot of probably young, Chinese Americans or Asian look up to in terms of being this Division I lacrosse player at Princeton? That's a lot of responsibility there.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely means a lot to me. So sometimes, like obviously, when the going gets tough, like I just think about like those guys, like how much it would mean to them to see a guy like I guess like a guy like me, but also just like me thinking back to when I was like young, like growing up playing lacrosse, just like admiring all the guys who are older than me, and like it's just like the same thing. I feel like it's now a little bit unique because I'm in the other side of things, but it's still like I think it's a special moment. So yeah, I just trying to enjoy every moment of it and soak it all in.
What was the biggest thing you learned from the experience of competing in those 2018 World Championships?
I think just how much the game has grown and how many people are so passionate about the sport, like throughout the whole entire world. I think that just going to that event and seeing like all these different countries that I didn't even know like knew lacrosse existed. Just seeing them all play the game, like, and then like honestly just have like this huge melting pot of people just like, like trading their different gear, like interacting, speaking different languages. Like it was just incredible. I think that was like one of the best experiences I've ever had.
Yeah, what is lacrosse in China like, from what you understand? I guess how is the game growing, or what's it look like out there?
Yeah, it's definitely growing out there. There's a great organization running it now, and there's a bunch of great coaches and and staff out there. They're installing like the youth lacrosse is growing everywhere in China in the major cities. They're also doing these I think like weekly or bi-monthly sixes tournaments in each of the major cities, and that's great for everybody. So I think like just like it's really something that's going to be built from the ground up, from youth lacrosse on. But the staff there, the coaches are doing a great job. And I think like the sixes tournaments, and I guess like where lacrosse is headed in the future is something that's extremely exciting.
So you getting a short stick in your hands anytime soon? Because I have to imagine if it's Olympic lacrosse, you couldn't turn down the opportunity to play for China.
Yeah, I might. I always joke around with Coach Hirsch here at Princeton that I'd love to play short stick D-mid and take after the other D-mids on our team. But yeah, I mean, I think I might do that sometime. I think it'd be a great opportunity. Obviously, like the Olympics, sixes, anything like that. Anytime you can have a stick in your hand is the best time. So.
Yeah. That's really cool. Back here to this season, you got Rutgers, Penn, and Yale coming up next. How do you approach this next stretch here, Andrew?
I think just with the same mentality that we've always had. We always say in games that score is 0-0. So I guess right now our record's just 0-0. Like 0, like you just got to have that mentality. Like I think that a lot of times, like before the season, like nobody knew who we were. We have to just stick to that mentality that like, even though we had this big win on Saturday, like, it doesn't mean anything. Like, it's just on to the next game.
After missing that time, what's it felt like to have these big games back, whether it was Maryland this weekend against Georgetown? I have to think there's such an appreciation for just the opportunity to be out there again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think, like, over the gap, you're like every weekend guys are talking about how much we just want to be back. Like we're always talking about these moments, and finally, like we're here. I think like it just makes us all cherish so much, like each individual moment. Like we always talk about, like it's something special just to get the chance to strap on your helmet, like something to be grateful for. And I think that's made just everybody appreciate every single moment just being together on the lacrosse field.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. And seeing the Ivy League back, I think now we feel whole again, right? Lacrosse feels right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Andrew, we appreciate the time, man. Thank you so much. I know you're on spring break, so I know you're lifting and preparing for this week, but thanks for spending a couple minutes with us, and congratulations on the win, and good luck the rest of the season. Yeah, thank you guys so much. Appreciate you guys spending some time with me. Some of these Ivy League kids just getting back out there to play once again. So what a start for Princeton. What a start, as Travis said, for the Ivy League. We got some more action coming up here on Tuesday. Travis on the call for St. Joe's and Drexel. Travis, what should we be looking out for there? An intriguing game for both these programs, considering where it is in the year. Drexel started slow. They lost the first two, but they've started to kind of get a feel for things. They're back. They've got back-to-back wins here. And St. Joe's, this team's for real. They are in my top 20. I keep voting them in there. They have the win over Penn State, which continues to look a little bit better after the performances Penn State has put on the last couple of weeks. So I'm really intrigued by this. Zach Cole, if you haven't seen him at the Faceoff X for the Hawks, one of the best guys in the country. He's up over 70%, maybe underrated in terms of faceoff guys, but he is terrific and has been for the last couple of years. He can be a difference maker. If he's on, Drexel has struggled at the X so far this year. That could really give the Hawks an edge. So it should be a terrific game to watch. Always a great rivalry in Philadelphia. And we were talking with Taylor Ray, the head coach for St. Joe's, earlier today. And he was saying, look, we recruit against Drexel. We're like 5 miles away. We recruit some of the same type of guys. So every time you get these types of games together, on top of, rivalry,
for the city for bragging rights. It's also some recruiting bragging rights as well. So should be a lot of fun here at 3:00 on Tuesday afternoon.
Wow, what a battle! What exciting thing! We're gonna 3:00 on a Tuesday. All that. I mean, you really
grab your
teed it up, Trav.
cheesesteaks. Grab your cheesesteaks, maybe a Rita's water ice, and like get ready to go, Philadelphia style.
Yeah, go get it delivered or whatever you do these days. Uber Eats, Grubhub. I was gonna say Gruber Hub, but it's Grubhub. Yeah, so excited for that. And I'm excited for all of you. Yeah, yep, that's also true, Travis. We'll have another show coming up later on this week on Thursday to get you ready for the weekend once again. For Travis, I'm Tom. Thanks for watching Lacrosse Now. See you next time, everyone.